Welcome to the world of sci-fi stories, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the channel. Enjoy the listening. The galaxy thought humanity was extinct until we took back what's ours. The silent void. The galaxy was silent. Stars sparkled in the distance, but the space between them was empty, almost like a void. No one remembered the human race, and no one cared to. Humanity, once a proud and fierce species, had vanished long ago. The wars, the battles, the victories, they were all stories of the past, lost in time. Earth, once a shining beacon of life, was now just another dead planet floating in the vastness of space. For centuries, no one had dared to visit the human colonies. They had crumbled, their ships lost in the darkness. The legends of their power, their technology, and their ability to survive were reduced to mere whispers, spoken only in the quiet corners of alien taverns and forgotten history books. To the galaxy, humanity was just a myth. But not all had forgotten. Far away from the prying eyes of the universe, deep within the orbit of the forgotten planet, something stirred. It was a signal, a faint pulse lost in the vast sea of cosmic radiation, but still strong enough to catch the attention of a few. The signal was strange. It had been coming from Earth for the past few weeks, and no one could understand its origin. It wasn't natural, not like the other cosmic noise that came from the stars. This was something deliberate, something human. At first, most alien factions dismissed it as a glitch, a misfiring signal from a long-dead ship or an abandoned satellite. But even the smallest possibility of life caught the attention of the most curious minds in the galaxy. Jark, an alien explorer from the Thren race, was one of those curious minds. He had spent his life searching for answers in the most forgotten corners of space. The Threns were a proud species, conquerors of many worlds. But they never bothered with the lost human worlds. After all, humanity was supposed to be gone, or so they thought. As Jark's ship drifted closer to the source of the signal, his crew grew uneasy. The silence around them was suffocating. The ship's sensors had nothing to pick up, not a single trace of anything resembling life. It was as if they were drifting into a dead zone of space, and yet that signal kept repeating, faint but undeniable. "There's something here," Jark muttered to himself, staring out into the empty blackness of space. He had heard rumors, of course, stories about the human fleet that had once dominated the galaxy. But those were just myths, weren't they? Tales passed down by the oldest races in the universe. The kind of stories meant to frighten children or entertain bored diplomats. But something was different this time. The signal was real, and if it was real, then there was a chance, just a tiny chance, that humanity was not extinct after all. The thought stirred something inside Jark. His people had conquered dozens of worlds, but the thought of facing humans again, after all this time, sent a chill down his spine. The galaxy had moved on, but could humanity really be returning? As the ship approached Earth's orbit, Jark's unease grew. There was no sign of life, no ships, no colonies, no anything. The planet below was a desolate, lifeless ball of rock drifting in the cold dark. Nothing had changed since the last time it was charted, and yet the signal persisted. "This doesn't make sense," one of his crew members said, voice trembling. "How could there be life here? How could humans have survived?" Jark didn't answer. Instead, he turned to the ship's communications officer. "Scan the planet again. Look for any unusual signals, anything at all." The officer nodded, fingers flying over the console. For a long moment, there was only silence in the room. Then the officer's voice broke the stillness, her tone filled with disbelief. "Captain, there's something there below the surface." Jark's heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean?" "An underground facility. It's ancient, but it's active. The signal, it's coming from there." Jark's mind raced. An underground facility on Earth? How could that be possible? The planet had been abandoned for centuries. Yet there it was, the signal was unmistakable, pulsing from deep within the planet's crust. "We need to investigate," Jark ordered, his voice tense. "Prepare a landing party." The ship descended toward Earth, its engines humming with quiet power as it cut through the atmosphere. The alien crew looked down at the lifeless surface of the planet, wondering what they would find. The legends had said that humanity had gone to war with the stars, that they had fallen to a great enemy. But if there was a facility beneath the surface, if there was something still alive on Earth, then those stories might not have been as far-fetched as they thought. The ship landed near an ancient crater where the remains of a long-forgotten battle were scattered. The crew disembarked, their boots crunching on the dusty surface. The air was thin, and the silence was overwhelming. It was as if the planet itself was holding its breath. Jark led the way, his footsteps echoing through the empty landscape. They moved toward the coordinates, the place where the signal had led them. As they neared the entrance to the underground facility, the ground seemed to hum with energy. The walls of the facility were old, covered in centuries of dust, but there was a strange power still radiating from within. Jark's pulse quickened. Could it be? Could humanity have truly survived all these years, hidden away in the depths of their own world, waiting for the moment to return? The door to the facility creaked open, revealing the dark, cavernous space inside. And then, as they entered, the lights flickered on. Ancient machinery hummed to life, and in the distance, they saw it. A massive screen flickered on, and a message appeared, written in human script. "We are coming back." The galaxy had been wrong. Humanity was not extinct. They were alive, and they were coming to take back what was once theirs. The signal that had been forgotten for centuries was now the spark of a new beginning. Humanity had returned, and this time nothing would stand in their way. Awakening the past. The message on the screen flickered once more, then went black. Silence filled the massive chamber. Jark stood frozen, staring at the blank display, his mind racing, trying to process what he had just seen. The words had been clear. "We are coming back." But who were they? Who was still alive? And how had they managed to hide for so long? His heart pounded in his chest. The legends had always painted humanity as a fierce and unstoppable force, but the idea that they had somehow survived in secret for centuries was beyond comprehension. They had been forgotten by most of the galaxy, written off as a myth, but the truth was staring him in the face, and it was terrifying. A voice behind him snapped Jark from his thoughts. It was one of his crew members, a Thran by the name of Zura, her tone laced with uncertainty. "Captain, this is impossible. How could a race like humanity hide for so long? And why haven't we found them before now?" Jark didn't respond immediately. His gaze shifted from the dark screen to the strange technology that filled the room. The walls were lined with old but functioning computers and communication devices, all powered by a core energy source that was completely foreign to him. The technology was advanced, far beyond anything the Thran or any other alien race had ever seen. It was clear that the humans had been far more powerful than anyone had ever imagined. But what had happened to them? Zura's voice brought him back to the present. "What do we do now, Captain?" Jark was still processing the enormity of the situation, but his instincts took over. The first step was clear. They needed answers. "Search the facility," Jark commanded. "Find any clues that can explain what happened to them. Whatever they've left behind, we need to know." His crew scattered through the underground complex, their footsteps echoing off the stone and metal. The facility seemed almost abandoned, but there were signs of life, small hints that humanity had not only survived but had been waiting for this moment. Holographic maps flashed on old projectors, showing cities that had long since been erased from the galaxy's records. Deep beneath the Earth, humanity had prepared, and now the time had come to reclaim their place. Jark entered a side room, his eyes scanning the surroundings. There were rows of containers, some of which appeared to be holding unknown substances, while others contained strange objects that hummed with energy. But it was the far corner of the room that caught his attention. There, resting in a glass case, was a human artifact, a weapon. It was unlike anything Jark had ever seen. It was sleek, metallic, and exuded an aura of immense power. He could feel it even from a distance, a faint hum that made the hairs on the back of his neck stand on end. The weapon's design was elegant yet brutal, as if it was made for a purpose beyond simple combat. It was clear this was not just a tool of war, it was something much more. "Captain, you need to see this," came Zura's voice over the communicator. Jark left the artifact behind and hurried to the room where Zura was waiting. She was standing by a large terminal, her fingers flying across the console. The screen displayed a map of the galaxy, but it was different from anything Jark had ever seen before. This map was older, filled with territories that had long since disappeared from modern star charts, but there, in the center of the map, was Earth. "Look at this," Zura said, her voice tinged with awe. "This isn't just a map. It's a record, a list of human colonies and their movements going all the way back to the beginning. But here, look at this." She pointed to a section of the map where a new line appeared, one that wasn't supposed to be there. It was a fleet, a massive fleet of human ships hidden in deep space. Jark stepped closer, his eyes widening. The fleet was enormous, far larger than any fleet the Thran had ever assembled, and it was still intact. The human race, it seemed, had been waiting for this moment to rise again. "This is what they left behind," Zura said, her voice barely above a whisper. "This is their plan." Jark's mind raced. The implications were staggering. If humanity had been planning a return, if they had this kind of firepower, then the galaxy was about to be changed forever. He could already feel the tension building in the air. The human fleet would come, and when it did, it would be unstoppable. "This changes everything," Jark muttered, more to himself than to Zura. He looked at the map, then back at the screen. "We need to report back. All factions need to know about this. Humanity is not extinct. They're coming back, and if they're as powerful as we think, we need to prepare." Zura nodded in agreement. "We've underestimated them for too long." Jark turned away from the terminal and began pacing. The galaxy would never be the same. The power of humanity, once thought lost, had been waiting, hidden beneath the surface of a forgotten world. And now, as the message had promised, they were coming back. But how would the galaxy react? Would they welcome humanity with open arms, or would the fear of their power spark yet another war? Jark didn't know, but one thing was certain. The return of humanity would shake the very foundation of the galaxy, and no one was ready for what was about to happen. As Jark and his crew prepared to leave the facility, the first glimmer of hope began to surface in his mind. Perhaps, just perhaps, this was the beginning of something more than just the return of a long-lost species. Maybe it was the dawn of a new era, one where humanity would not only reclaim their space, but dominate the stars once more. But the galaxy would soon find out. The silence had been broken, and humanity's return was inevitable. The Galactic Council's dilemma. Back aboard the flagship of the Thran fleet, Jark sat in his private quarters, staring at the holographic map of the galaxy. The bright stars twinkled in the vastness of space, each representing a civilization, a power, a story. But now, one of those stories was about to shift. Humanity, once thought lost, was returning, and the galaxy was unprepared for what that meant. Jark ran his fingers through his thick, dark hair as he tried to wrap his mind around the reality of it all. Humanity was supposed to be a footnote in galactic history, a species that had vanished millennia ago. Yet here they were, preparing to rise from the ashes. The fleet of ships they had discovered earlier was unlike anything he had ever seen, far superior to the weapons and tactics that even the most powerful empires could boast. It was clear that humanity had not only survived but had been planning for their return, hidden away in the dark corners of the universe. A low chime interrupted his thoughts, and the image of Zura appeared in front of him. Her eyes were wide with excitement, but there was a tinge of fear in her voice as she spoke. "Captain, you need to see this. The Galactic Council has called an emergency session. They know we found something. They don't know exactly what, but they're afraid." Jark's pulse quickened. The Galactic Council was the most powerful governing body in the known universe, composed of representatives from all the major civilizations. It was an organization that held sway over every corner of space. If they were afraid, then whatever they had uncovered about humanity must be significant. "Prepare the fleet for immediate departure. We're going to the Council," Jark ordered. Within hours, the massive Thran warships were en route to the Council's central station, a floating city that hovered in the heart of the galaxy, surrounded by ancient ruins and deep space anomalies. It was a neutral ground where the most delicate matters of galactic politics were discussed, and it was here that the fate of the galaxy would be determined. As Jark's ship approached the station, he couldn't shake the feeling of unease. The return of humanity was more than just a matter of politics. It was a reminder of a power that had once rivaled the greatest empires of the stars. What if humanity's return wasn't a peaceful one? What if they were looking to reclaim more than just their lost space? What if they wanted revenge? The massive station came into view, a sprawling structure of gleaming silver and black metal, surrounded by the shimmering nebula that painted the backdrop. It looked peaceful, almost inviting, but Jark knew better. Beneath its surface, there was tension. The Council's representatives would not take the news of humanity's return lightly. The Thran flagship docked with the station, and Jark led his crew into the Council chambers. The room was large, with towering pillars and holographic projections of various star systems floating above a central platform. The members of the Galactic Council were already assembled, representatives from the Tsar Alliance, the Varan Dominion, the Krell Syndicate, and the peaceful Shilla Federation. Their faces were a mixture of concern and disbelief as Jark entered, his footsteps echoing in the vast chamber. Jark took his place at the center of the room, his heart pounding as he looked around. The council's leaders watched him closely, their eyes narrow with suspicion. None of them knew what to make of the discovery that had come from the Thren expedition. Captain Jark began, General Tavar of the Tsar Alliance, his reptilian eyes gleaming with mistrust. We've heard troubling reports. What exactly have you found, and why wasn't this brought to our attention sooner? Jark took a deep breath and stepped forward. He had no choice but to reveal the truth. We have found humanity. Not only are they not extinct, but they have been hiding in the farthest reaches of space, preparing for their return. They have a fleet, a powerful one that could change the balance of the galaxy. They've been waiting for the right moment to strike, and I believe that moment is now. A ripple of murmurs swept through the council, and Jark could see the fear in their eyes. Humanity, long considered a myth, was now a real and present threat. "You're certain?" asked Era, the representative from the Krell Syndicate, her voice laced with skepticism. "How do we know this isn't some kind of trick, a hoax to stir up unrest among us?" Jark nodded gravely. "I've seen the evidence myself. There's a fleet hidden in deep space, older than anything we've encountered but still operational. Humanity's technology is far beyond our understanding. They've been biding their time, and now they're ready to make their move." The room fell silent. The weight of Jark's words settled over the assembly like a heavy fog. The council had dealt with many threats in the past. Alien invasions, civil wars, rebellions, but nothing like this. Humanity was not just another enemy to be crushed. They were a force that had once held dominion over the stars, a force that could rise again. "I suggest we begin preparations," Jark continued. "Humanity may be seeking revenge for their past, or they may be looking to reclaim what they lost. Either way, we need to be ready for what's coming." There was a long pause as the council members exchanged uneasy glances. Finally, the voice of Varen spoke. "We've all heard the rumors about humanity's strength, but no one has seen it in centuries. If they are truly returning, we must consider our next steps carefully. This could lead to war, or to something much worse." Jark felt the weight of the council's indecision bearing down on him. Time was running out. Humanity was coming, and it would be foolish to underestimate them. But would the council be able to set aside their differences and unite against a threat they didn't fully understand? Jark's thoughts were interrupted as the holographic screen above the chamber flickered to life. It was a message, a signal from the fleet of ships humanity had left behind. The message was short, but its meaning was unmistakable. "We are the remnants of humanity. We have returned for what is ours. Prepare to face the legacy of the stars." The words sent a chill through the room. Humanity had not only survived, they had thrived in secret, and now they were coming for what they had lost. The council was no longer a mere political body. It was now the front line of a galactic war that would decide the fate of the universe itself. Jark, the room fell into a heavy silence. The message from humanity echoed in every mind, the weight of its implications hanging like a sword over the galaxy. The council, normally composed and confident, seemed shaken by the words that had just been transmitted. Jark stood at the center of the chamber, his thoughts racing. He had expected fear, but not like this. The once dismissed humans had returned with a purpose, and the galaxy's most powerful factions were now scrambling to comprehend what that purpose might be. One by one, the members of the Galactic Council began to speak, their voices low, uncertain. Knew the time for diplomacy was over. The return of humanity would change everything. "We cannot allow humanity to reclaim their space," growled General Tavar, the leader of the Tsar Alliance, his reptilian features twisted in anger. "They were defeated before, and they will be defeated again. We have the strength to push them back." Jark watched as the room erupted into heated discussions. Some of the council members were ready for a direct confrontation, while others hesitated, their minds still caught in disbelief. Humanity, after all, was a legend, a race that had been forgotten by most and misunderstood by the rest. "War is never the answer," said Era, the calm and collected representative of the Krell Syndicate. "We do not know what humanity's intentions truly are. It would be foolish to wage war based on fear alone." Jark felt the tension in the room grow. He understood the impulse to attack. His own people, the Frans, were prepared to do just that. But Era's words rang true. The problem was not knowing how to fight humanity, but knowing what they were truly capable of. The council had no choice. They needed to act. But what would they do? "Maybe we can negotiate," suggested Zura, Era's second-in-command. She stood at his side, her eyes scanning the room, ever watchful. "We know so little about what humanity wants now. If we could establish contact—" "No," interrupted General Tavar sharply. Contact will only confirm that they intend to take back what they think is theirs. If we delay, we risk giving them the upper hand. We must strike now. Jark shook his head slowly. This was not the path to take. Despite the aggression of the Tsar, he knew better than to charge headlong into a war with an unknown enemy, especially one that had been hidden away for so long. Humanity had time on their side, and that made them dangerous. We are not ready to face them, Jark said firmly, raising his voice to cut through the argument. We cannot just attack blindly. We must understand them. We must learn everything we can before we make any decisions, and we need to do it now. For a moment, there was silence again. The room was divided, but Jark's words carried weight. The council members turned to one another, each weighing the risks of acting without full knowledge. Eventually, the speaker of the Galactic Council, a wise and aged being from the Shilla Federation, stood. The captain is correct, the speaker said, his voice carrying a quiet authority. We cannot rush into this. We will send an envoy, a team to make contact with humanity. It is the only way we will know for certain what their intentions are. We must avoid war if possible and gather as much intelligence as we can. The room shifted, the mood changing from one of heated urgency to one of cautious cooperation. Despite the fear that hung over them all, the council members agreed that they would send an envoy, an expedition to meet humanity and understand what had happened during their long absence. But as the decision was made, another question lingered in the minds of the council. What if the humans had already made their move? What if the message they had sent was only the beginning? Jark couldn't shake the feeling that the true war was not just one of ships and weapons. It was a war of perception, of information. Humanity had the advantage of surprise, and that was far more dangerous than any battle fleet. Meanwhile, in the dark recesses of space, far beyond the reach of the Galactic Council, humanity's ships moved in silence, hidden from the radar of even the most advanced sensors. Their vessels glided through the black void, their crews silently preparing for what was to come. No one knew of their exact numbers or their full strength. The Council had underestimated humanity's ability to remain hidden for so long. In the cockpit of a sleek human warship, Captain Alinectar, the leader of the expeditionary fleet, stared at the vast expanse of stars before her. Her face was hardened with the weight of the mission, but her resolve was unshakable. "We're ready," she said to her crew. "The galaxy believes we're extinct, but we're far from it. It's time to remind them that humanity is not a species that can be forgotten." The ship's systems hummed as they engaged the cloaking device, rendering the vessel invisible to any external detection. It was one of humanity's greatest advancements, developed and perfected during their long isolation. No fleet in the galaxy would be able to track them, not until it was far too late. Alina's thoughts turned to Earth, the planet that had been the cradle of humanity's rise. It was no longer the home it once was, but it was still theirs, and they would take it back. Not with brute force, but with the wisdom and cunning that had kept them alive all these years. The rest of the galaxy had no idea what they were about to face. "Initiate the next phase," Alina ordered. The crew acknowledged, and the ship moved forward into the unknown. Elsewhere, scattered across the galaxy, small signals began to flicker to life, tiny whispers of humanity's presence echoing faintly in the dark. They were watching, waiting, and silently observing the galaxy's every move. The game had changed, and the galaxy was about to realize just how powerful a forgotten race could be. The unseen war had begun. The stars looked peaceful, but something was moving in the dark between them. A mining vessel belonging to the Fran Empire floated silently near an asteroid belt. Its crew, mostly engineers and low-ranking officers, worked without worry. They didn't believe in the stories. The tales of humanity returning were just that. Tales, rumors, ghost stories.